Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudiraet.
Tato
Jayamudire.
Nashtaprayasu Abhadresu.
Nashtaprayesu Bhadresu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke.
Bhagavati Uttam Sloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
So today we are going to do a little different. So we basically took the top 3 verses of chapter 14 titled The Three Modes of Material Nature, and we covered it in 3 different weeks. So what we are going to do today is we are going to have one of you lead the sloka and someone else can read the translation, and someone else can lead the sloka too, and someone else can read the translation, so that we cross examine and cross train each other, so that whatever we discuss in the last 3 weeks, it kind of sticks. So the top 3 verses we took were essentially chapter 14 verse 4. Anybody would like to lead this? If you want to if you don't want to speak, you can mute yourself. Okay, I think I'll lead them. Sarvayoni Sukonteya Murtaya Sambhavantiya
Mrutaya Sambhavatiya
Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir
Tasam
Aham Bija Pradapita.
Aham Bija
Anyone would like to lead?
Sarvayoni Sukaunteya.
Sarvayoni Sukonteya
Murtaya Sambhavantiyaha.
Murtaya Sambhavantiya
Tasam Brahma Mahadneni.
Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir
Aham Bija Pradapita.
Aham Bija
Pradapita.
Sarvayoni Sukunteya
Sarvayoni Sukonteya
Mrutaya Sambhavatiya
Murtaya Sambhavantiya
Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir
Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir
Aham Bija Pradapita
Aham Bija Pradapita.
Sarvayoni Sukaunteya
Sarvayoni Sukonteya
Murtayaha Sambhavantiyaha
Mrutaya
Murtaya
Sambhavantiya
Sambhavantiya
Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir
Tasam
Tasam
Brahma
Brahma
Mahadyonir
Mahadyonir
Aham Bija Pradapita.
Aham
Aham
Bija
Bija
Pradapita.
Pradapita.
Aham Bija Pradapita.
Thank you. Word by word meaning. Sarvayonisu.
Sarvayonishu.
In all species of life.
In
all species of life.
Kaunteya, O son of Kunti.
Kunteya,
O
O son of Kunti.
Murtaya, forms.
Murtaya, forms.
Sambhavanti.
Sambhavanti.
They appear.
They appear.
They appear.
Ya, which.
Yeah,
which.
Tasam, of all of them.
Tasam, of all of them.
Brahma, the supreme.
Brahma the Supreme.
Brahma, the supreme.
Mahatyoni.
Mahatyoni.
Source of birth in the material substance.
Source
Source
of birth.
Source of birth in the material substance.
Aham, I.
Aham,
I.
Bija, Prada.
Bija
Bija
Prada,
Prada.
The seed giving.
the
The
seed
seed giving.
Pita,
Pita.
Pita.
Father.
Father.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
It should be understood that
It should be understood that
all species of life,
all species
all
of
species of life,
O son of Kunti,
O son
of
O
Kunti,
son of Kunti,
are made possible
are
made
made
possible
by birth in this material nature,
by
by
birth
by
this
birth
material
in this
nature,
material nature,
and that I am the seed giving father.
and that
and
I am
that-
the
and
seed
that
the
I am
seed
the
giving
seed
father.
giving father.
Verse number 26. Mamchayo yabhyacharena
Mam chayo vicharena
Yarino.
bhakti yogena sevate
bhakti yogena sevate
sagunan samati tyatan
sagunan samtitam
brahma bhuyaya kalpate
brahma bhuyaya kalpate
mamchayo abhyacharena
mam chayo vicharena
bhakti yogena sevate
bhakti yogena sevate
sagunan samati tyatan
sagunan samtitam
brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
brahma bhuyaya kalpate
Any Prabhuji Mataji?
mam chayo vicharena
Mamchayo yabhicharena
bhakti yogena sevate
Bhakti
yogena sevate
sagunan samtityana
sagunan samati tvanam
brahma bhuyaya kalpate
brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
Mamchayo babicharena
mam
Mamchayo
chayo
Yo abhicharena
bhakti yogena sevate
Bhakti
bhakti yogena sevate
sagunan samatitya etan
sagunan samatitya
brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
Mam Chaya Bhyabhicharena
Mamchayo abhicharena
Bhakti Yogena Sevate
Bhakti
bhakti
Yogena
yogena
Eh,
sevate
utre se.
Sogunan Samatityaitan
Sagunan
sagunan samatitya
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
brahma
Bhuyaya
bhuyaya
Kalpate.
kalpate.
Mamchayo Vyabhicharena
Mam
Mamchayo
chayo
abhicharena
Bhakti Yogena Sevate
Bhakti
bhakti
Yogena
yogena
Sevate
sevate
Sagunan Samati Yaitan
sagunan samatitya
Brahma Bhuyaye Kalpate.
brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Word by word meaning. Mam unto me.
Come unto
Mam
me.
unto me.
Cha also.
Cha
Cha
also
also.
Ya a person who.
Yeah,
a
a person.
Abhyabhicharena
Yeah, vicharena.
without fail.
Without fail.
Bhakti yogena
Bhakti yogena.
by devotional service.
By
By
devotional service.
devotional service.
Sevate
Sevate.
Sevate.
render service.
Render
Render
service.
service.
Sa he
Sa
He.
he.
gunan.
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 The modes of material nature.
The modes of
Modes of
material.
material nature.
Samatitya
Samatitya.
Samtitya.
transcendenting.
Transcendenting.
Transcending. Etan.
All these.
All these.
All these.
Brahma bhuyaya
Brahma bhuyaya.
elevated to the Brahman platform.
Elevated to the Brahman platform.
Kalpate
Kalpate.
Kalpate.
becomes.
Becomes.
One who translation by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
One who engages in
One
One
who
who engages in
full devotional service,
Full devotional
full devotional service,
unfailing in all circumstances,
unfailing
unfailing
all
in all
circumstances,
circumstances,
at once
at
at
once
once,
transcends the modes of material nature,
transcends the
transcends the
material
modes
nature,
of material nature,
and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
and
and
thus
and
comes to
thus
the level of
comes to the
Brahman.
level of Brahman.
Verse number 27. Brahmano hi pratisthaham
Brahmano hi
pratisthaham
pratisthaham
amrita swayavasya cha
amrit
amrutsyavyayasya cha
sasvatasya cha dharmasya
शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्य
dharmasya
sukhya saikantikasya cha
सुक्ष एकांतिकस्य च
brahmano hi pratisthaham
ब्रह्मणो हि प्रतिष्ठा
aham
अहम्
amritasya vyasya cha
amrit
अमृष्याव्ययस्य च
yes so
sasvatasya cha dharmasya
शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्य
sukhasya aikantikasya cha
सुखस्य एकांतिकस्य च
brahmana. Sorry, anybody want to lead?
ब्रह्मणो हि प्रतिष्ठा अहम्
Brahmano hi pratisthaham
अमृष्याव्ययस्य च
amrutasya vayasya cha
शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्य
sasvatasya cha dharmasya
सुखस्य एकांतिकस्य च
sukhasya aikantikasya cha. Anyone else?
Brahmano hi pratisthaham
Brahmano hi pratisthaham
amritasya cha
amritasya vayasya cha
shashvatasya cha dharmasya
sasvatasya cha dharmasya
sukhasya ekantikasya cha
sukhasya aikantikasya cha
brahmana hi pratisthaham
brahmano hi pratisthaham
amrutasya bhyasya cha
amritasya vayasya cha
शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्मयस्य
sasvatasya cha dharmasya
सुखसैकान्तिकस्य च
sukhasya aikantikasya cha. Word by word meaning. Brahmana of the impersonal Brahma Jyoti.
Brahmana of the impersonal Brahma Jyotir.
ब्रह्मणो हि पर्सनल ब्रह्म ज्योतिर
He certainly.
He certainly
Pratistha the rest.
प्रतिष्ठा the rest.
Aham I am.
Aham I am.
Amritasya
Amrutasya
of the immortal.
of the immortal.
Avyayasya
Avyayasya
of the imperishable.
of the imperishable.
Cha also.
Cha also.
Sasvatasya
Shashvatasya
of the eternal.
of the
of the eternal.
Cha and
Cha and
Dharmasya
Dharmasya
of the constitutional position.
of the constitutional position.
Sukhasya
Sukhasya
of happiness.
of happiness.
Aikantikasya
Aikantikasya
ultimate.
ultimate.
Cha
Cha
also.
also.
Translation by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. And I am the basis
and I
and
am
I am the basis
of the impersonal Brahman,
of the impersonal
personal
Brahman,
Brahman,
which is immortal,
which is immortal,
which is immortal,
imperishable,
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 and eternal,
and
and
eternal,
eternal,
and is the constitutional position
and is the
and
constitutional
is the
position
constitutional position
of the ultimate happiness.
of the
of
ultimate
ultimate
happiness.
happiness.
Let's all chant together. Om Agyana Timirandasya
Om
Jnananjana Shalakaya
Gyantimirandasya Jnananjala
Chakshurmilitam
Shalakaya
Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave
Chakshurmilitam
Namaha
Tasmai
Namah.
Shri
Sri
Gurave
Chaitanya
Namo
Manobhishtam
Nishtam
Stapitam Yena
Stapitam
Bhutale
Ena Bhutale
Swayam Rupa
Swayamrupa
Kadamaiham Dadati
Kadayam
Swapadantikam
Iswapadantikam
Vandeham Sri Guru
Vandeham
Sri
Sri
Yudapada
Guru
Kamalam
Sri
Sri Guru
Patakamalam Sri
Vaishnavamscha
Vaishnavancha
Sri Rupam
Sri Rupam
Sagrajatam Sahagana
Sagrajatam
Raghunatham Vitam Tam
Sagranatham
Sajivam
Vitam Sajivam
Sadvaitam
Madhutam
Savadhutam
Savadutam
Parijana Sahitam
Parijan
Krishna
Sahitam
Chaitanya
Krishna
Devam
Chaitanya Devam
Sri
Sri
Radha
Rama
Krishna
Krishna
Padan Sahagana
Padam
Lalita
Savan
Sri
Lalita Sri
Vishakha Vitamsha
Vishakantha
He Krishna
He
Karuna
Krishna
Sindhu
Karuna
Dina
Sindhu
Bandhu Jagatpate
Bandhu Jagatpate
Gopesha Gopika
Gopesha
Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute
Gopika
Tapta
Namostute
Kanchana
Tapta Kanchana
Gaurangi Radhe
Gaurani Radhe
Vrindavaneshwari
Vrindavaneshwari
Vrishabhanusute Devi
Vishvanusute Devi
Pranamami Hari Priye
Pranamami Hari Priye
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa
Vanchakalpatarubhyacha
Sindhuvaiva cha
Kripasindhuvaya
Patitanam
Pitanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Namo Namah
Jai Shri Krishna
Jai Shri
Chaitanya
Krishna
Prabhu
Chaitanya
Nityananda Shri
Nityananda
Advaita
Shri
Gadadhar Srivas
Advaita
Adi Gaura Bhakta
Sadi
Vrinda
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Rama
Hare Hare.
Hare.
Rama Hare Hare.
So thank you so much for joining this Sangha. Actually, this is a culmination of chapter 14. And this chapter 14 is a very prominent chapter because the modes of material nature is being discussed. And we picked on three verses. These three verses are very, very important. And it is in the top 108 verses, these three verses from this chapter 14 figures. And we all discussed it. But as you know, Gita Jayanti is coming. And during Gita Jayanti, there is a lot of emphasis on Parayana, on how we utter or how we recite. And during that time, there are many temples where all the 700 verses are going to be recited. So when you recite the verse in association with devotees, when somebody leads and we all follow. So Krishna, several thousand years ago, uttered these verses to Arjuna. And when we utter that verse, the Parayana part, where the recitation of the verse is is important, it gets us a positive vibe. So most of the time rely on the meaning of the words and we take the essence of the words, and that is all good. But also at the same time, the emphasis on the recitation, wherever there is some chanting going on, there is an element of utterance or the recitation of Bhagavad Gita going on, like how we did in the last 15 minutes. There is a very strong vibe or strong purity in the air. And that is exactly when you hear, when you utter, whenever you utter something good, it has a very positive vibe in the air, in the atmosphere, in the home, and the quarrel and hypocrisy goes away. As so, we exactly did that. So, uttering Bhagavad Gita or in the form of recitation is not a mundane thing. Most of the time, we want to get to the essence. That's also good. Where we'll get to that, but we should all take away the fact that we had uttered it, and we appreciate that sense of hearing, because when the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his lotus mouth, and he could have become a master in the battlefield, but he chose to be the servant of his friend, just being a charioteer. And at that time he's uttering the life lessons, and we are hearing it as someone utters and someone hears. So the recitation, the parayan, the vibe is there. So here, so this chapter is all about material nature. So we think, I was hearing, I was reading a news actually. You could Google it. So there is a lady who happened to uh, have bonds. There is an American lady. You could Google the news. I saw it somewhere. The lady had a lot of bonds. So what happens in a very cruel society? The family doesn't bind at the time of crisis. She had all kind of burn marks, and so the journalist asked the husband, why uh, you had age in your side, why you didn't leave your wife and get married to somebody else. The husband said, i haven't I didn't get married to the body, I married to the soul. And if you look at this verse where we're talking about the Brahman realization, we are actually talking about the soul. So when we have this material nature, we have the three modes of material nature. We have the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So when you transcend the modes of material nature, when you transcend the three modes of material nature, and there are techniques which are given here. The 26th verse talks about one technique. We'll get there, but when we transcend beyond the material nature, we realize that we are not this body. So this bodily relationship, which is there in this world, and there are many people who are very conscious, even if they have read Bhagavad Gita or not. If they have read, it basically gives them a methodical viewpoint that we are not the body, we are soul, we are spirit souls, we are part and parcel of the super soul as the elementary soul. And that relationship, so the sooner we realize that we are soul, the differences between all of us will go away. Because when we think that we are the soul, and who is our supreme father? Aham bija pradapita. Krishna is saying here, right here, 14.4. Aham bija pradapita. He is the seed giving father of everyone. So all of us are related to the supreme personality of Godhead. And if we have understood that, and we consider ourselves to be the soul, there'll be no quarrel, there'll be no hypocrisy, there'll be no fighting, there'll be no war, because everybody is a part and parcel of the Supreme. And through that relationship, we all are related. So in that sense, Krishna is telling to Arjuna that Aham Bija Pradapita. That means I am the seed giving father. And there he's referring to Arjuna as Kaunteya, because the 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 parental and the child relationship is being expressed here, because Krishna is saying he's the seed giving father. So he's referring to Arjuna as Kaunteya. And that relationship is done through the impregnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with Prakriti, which is the mother nature. So that's the reason why we have our father, who is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, seed giving father, he clearly explains. And our mother is the mother nature. So we're supposed to take care of it. And whenever we take care of the mother nature, we get the fruits of mother nature, we get pulses, we get rice, dal, whatever it may be from the mother nature. So we have to take care of the mother nature and not. So it's a very uh, universal theme which Krishna is explaining, that when you transcend beyond your bodily platform of these three modes of material nature, that's the reason why Krishna is mentioned. He is Trigunatit. Trigunatit means three gunas. You have the three modes of material nature, three gunas: goodness, sattvic, rajasic, passion, tamasic. So and Krishna is Trigunatit. That means he is beyond. Triguna, there's three modes. Atit means he is beyond. So Krishna is mentioned Trigunatit. And when he is beyond these three modes of nature, so he could really see all of us. We are trying every day to really juggle between how to stay in the confines of modes of goodness. But when we know that sometimes we want to enjoy without Krishna, sometimes we have ignorance
Oh,
with a later part of the day when we're feeling sleepy, we have ignorance which is set in.
appointment.
But
Eh?
when we transcend beyond this material nature, we realize some of this wonderful life lessons where Krishna is giving here by saying that he is the seed giving father and mother nature is the mother, and we should take care of, and we should treat
Hallelujah.
everyone with deep respect. If and sooner we realize, and we are very forgetful, we don't realize that we are supposed to be spirit souls. We work in the bodily platform, and when we work in the bodily platform, we have man buddhi ahankar, we have this ego, and that really trips us. And that is the reason why a dose of Bhagavad Gita with these beautiful lessons will get us back into track. That's the reason why, we are forgetful. We are consistently thinking that we should enjoy without Krishna. But when we realize that we are in a tipping point, these kind of verses get us back into the realism. And then Krishna uh, is explaining in another that the technique here, the technique is bhakti yogena sevate. Bhakti yogena sevate, and he is saying abhyacharena. So one who is vyabhicharena, that means where somebody is actually fiddling in his mind, trying to, he or she is trying to have, relationship with multiple individuals, then you tend to say he or she is vyabhicharena. So here Krishna is saying abhyacharena. Abhyacharena means he is without fail, and he is focused on one. He is not focused on 33 crores. He's basically focused on one and only. So when we are focused on one and only, and then we are constantly focused without fail, uh, but with what? With bhakti yogena sevate. Krishna is not saying whenever you're focusing on one, do karma. Krishna is not saying do karma yogena sevate. Krishna is not saying uh, jnana
Jnani.
yogena sevate. Your sevata means serve, but serve how? With bhakti, with love, with devotional service. So without fail, focusing on one, the technique is bhakti. So when you consistently do bhakti on one and only, then you elevate yourself to Brahma Bhuyaya.
Brahman level.
You basically uplift yourself, right, Prabhu? You uplift yourself to the Brahman platform. So constantly doing bhakti. Bhakti is devotional service. Bhakti is loving devotional service. It is like whatever you are eating, offer it to Krishna. It's not what you give to Krishna which is important. It's how you give with full of love. So if you are very caring to somebody who is coming to your house as a guest, you will try to make something what the guest likes. So if the guest likes rasgulla, guest like khichdi, or guests like chole bhature, you'll make because you like that person and you want to make that to please that person. So that is love for that person. Likewise, if Krishna likes something, what does Krishna likes? Whatever Krishna likes, whether Krishna likes a flower, Krishna likes water, Krishna likes uh, uh, fruits, you basically give that with respect, with love, and you partake that. That means it becomes prasad, it becomes remnant, and you eat it. So what will happen is you'll always think of offering something which will please Krishna. So that means your attitude towards eating something which Krishna doesn't like will go away. It will all go away. So gradually, see, all of us at some form of the shape, we were taking or eating things which we're not supposed to. But as bhakti is engulfing each of us in whatever different ways, we are trying to eliminate those things from our lives so that you're becoming more and more transformational. And when we become more and more transformational, we're changing for better. And that is exactly the purpose of this devotional service. Anything we end up doing, if it's not transforming any of us, what good is that process? And this bhakti yoga is a process where you have this life, you do some practical things as stipulated by the prescribed duties, and then you change. You see the transformation here. I have seen my transformation. I have seen some of you having transformed as well. You have a feeling for the Supreme whenever his festivities are there,
Oh.
whenever his activities are there. So it is very important that
Yes. Eh?
it is very important that you showcase that element of love, and that process of loving devotional service with one and only abhyacharena abhyacharena will elevate you to Brahman platform. Brahman platform means you recognize that you are not the body, you are the soul, which is the purpose of the Brahman platform. Here we're not talking about Brahman, the Brahminical process. We're talking about Brahman. Brahman is when you basically uplift beyond this three modes of material nature, you tend to think that you're not the body, you're the soul. And when you elevate yourself to this soul platform, you will uh, feel that by doing this devotional service, you have transformed. And that key to recognizing that you have transformed is very important. And that is why we should all engage in devotional service. Chanting the names of the Lord is, if you're there in a place where you can't come to a temple or festivals, whatever, chant, call out the names of the Lord more and more, and you prepare things for the pleasure of the Lord, and that gradually you'll come back to the level of Brahman. And then the next verse, which is the last verse of this chapter, which we also discussed, then Krishna is saying, once you transcend, this is the next verse, right? So once you transcend to Brahman platform, which is established by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that means he's saying, Krishna is saying aham. That means he is establishing this this platform, this Brahmabhuta stage, and in this stage, when a person lands, and who is that person? That person is a supreme person who has established this, and that supreme person is immortal, is imperishable, and he is Saswata, eternal. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Saswata, and he is Avyayasya, and he is Amritasya. Amritasya means he is immortal. Avyayasya, he is imperishable, and he is Saswata, he is eternal. And then at that, and if the person who focuses on that person, that one and only we spoke about, he derives Sukhasya. He derives happiness. And what kind of happiness is this? Aikantikasya. That means he derives the ultimate happiness. So once you transcend these three modes of material nature and you start practicing bhakti, and you get to the process of the the Brahman platform, there Krishna is explaining three things. Okay, let's try to discuss these three things. So Brahman is the impersonal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this Brahman can also be in the localized place in our heart as Paramatma. And also that Paramatma is part and parcel of somebody who is a person. So as you can see, there are three things. You have the Brahman, then Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So here Krishna is saying that I means what in this example? I is a person. So Krishna, after defining the Brahman principle in the prior verses, he's establishing the three ultimate truths. And that is very important because our process is a personalized process. Everything you end up doing in your iPhone or Android, whatever it is giving a personalized experience to you, depending on your trait, depending on your age, depending on your gender. You are given a personal UI UX, wherein you're fed with news pertaining to your age group, your gender, your favorites, your likability. It's a personalized experience. The impersonal experience is a very incomplete experience. Let me say, it's not an incorrect experience, it's a very incomplete experience. So that's the reason why Krishna is explaining that this Bhagavan realization is for Gyanis. The Paramatma realization is for yogis, but the Bhagavan realization, the personal experience of God is Bhagavan. He is not experienced as, and we keep giving the example of the uh, the letter FaceTime and serving the mother by going to India, where you have a personal impression of the individual and you could feel it. That's the reason why in our method of devotional service, deity worship is very important. How we dress the deities, how we see the Shringar done, how our eyes can be cleansed by having a beautiful darshan of the deities, which who is offered Shringar twice a day, every day with nice abhushan, because our sense of sight is a significant thing. It is a sense. The modes of material nature is controlled by senses. We have been through that in chapter 2 and so many other chapters. So if the senses are cleansed by a sweet darshan, a sweet personal darshan of the lordships, which are called deities, not idols, and who is offered 8 times in our ISKCON temples, starting from Prata Bhog all the way to Sayan Bhog, then our mind gets cleansed. That's the reason why it is very important to be associated in devotional service where you end up serving the Lord in the form of Shringar, in the form of Bhoga cooking, because you are basically doing a personalized treatment and you could only experience happiness through a personalized treatment. So I hope this 3 verses, the Power Pack 3 verses, talks about the modes of material nature and how to transcend the technique of bhakti, and eventually discusses about the 3 ultimate truths, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, so that we are very clear about our personalized expression. And that is the reason why there are so many, and it's full of examples, the 4 Kumaras, until they had the aroma of the Tulsi leaves from Vishnu, they were at the Brahman realized. But once they understood the personal treatment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where he is taking the mistakes of his subordinates, Jaya and Vijay, at the doorsteps of Vaikuntha, when that personal treatment is experienced by the 4 Kumaras, the 4 uh, sons of Brahmaji, then they transformed from the Brahman realized Gyanis to Bhaktas. So this chapter is about how to transcend the modes of material nature. First, the Lord is establishing that he is the seed-giving father, and then he is expressing a technique, and finally he is nicely explaining about the ultimate truths, the three ultimate truths of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Hope this gives a good overview about we are in this birth, in this 60, 70, 80 years of life. We are kids of our father and mother, our father and mother who has given us birth, but we are not the body. We have lived before, we will live later, provided we don't go back to Godhead. And in all these times, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the seed giving father across the board, and he is the eternal father. And in order to derive, or in order to transcend, we have to do bhakti, and we should not stick at the Brahman level. We should serve the personal Bhagavan form of the Lord, and hope that clarifies and gives more clarity in our understanding of this beautiful chapter before we move to chapter 15 next week. So with that, I'd like to end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Any comments, questions, reflections? Please, please share. Any thoughts from anyone? I know it's a long weekend. It's you may be busy with your family and friends. Thank you for joining. Any comments you would like to make? Any reflections?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, nicely explained, Prabhuji, the summary. I really like the way you explained. So Prabhuji, so we spoke about how to transcend the three modes of matter nature, right? So probably like how can I know, like I'm in so basically like every living being has three modes, right? Like so there will be a percentage, I would say, like let's say goodness, let's say 70% or 80%, let's say, right? So how like we decide, like what is our percentage, like so is it like something like what kind of food we eat, like based on that actually the modes of nature will vary, or how?
See, modes of material nature is a habitual, a habit-oriented and time-oriented activity. What I mean by that is, if you're in the beginning of the day, early in the morning, when you get up in Brahma Muhurta and you chant well, you'll realize that for a long period of time, you could retain that mode of goodness. That's one thing. Secondly, the mode of goodness has to do one aspect. One of the many aspects is definitely what you mentioned, is what you eat. What you eat is what you become. That's the thing. But also, Prabhu, more you associate with favorable people, your mode of goodness will become like that. You may eat the greatest of the vegetarian food, but if you indulge in associating with people who are not favorable at all to your devotional practice, it will be a very challenging experience for you. It's what you read, what you associate, what you practice, and also your upbringing, Prabhu. If you're born to a very conscious family, there's a very good chance that that's the reason why Srila Prabhupada made everybody come under one roof, where different people at different level of their consciousness can come in and can cleanse it. Some cleanse it very fast, some cleanse it very slow. So it is a mixture of our upbringing, because it's all conditioning. We are conditioned souls, that's why. And this conditioning has a lot of factors or traits built into it. But that has nothing to worry. It's not as if you are born as a Brahmana, and you'll always be a Brahmana in the other process. Here we have a chance to transform and get better at it every day. It's a process. It's a sadhana. Sadhana is a process, and we are sadhakas. So we are practitioners. So as we practice more and more techniques which is given to us, we have an opportunity to change. But definitely food, habit, conditioning is all built into it, Prabhu. Did I answer your question, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you so much. And also, Prabhuji, let's say in morning, right? Let's say if I chant, let's say 2 hours, right? And let's say if I do daily worship, let's say for 30 minutes, let's say if I cook for 1 hour. So all these 4 hours that I spend, right, in devotional service, so those will not be, count as a that will not come under mode of goodness or person, right? It will be kind of transcendental because I'm doing devotional service.
Yeah, definitely. So what happens, Prabhu, when you end up doing the service? Initially, it will not be um, full of purity. It will there'll be some uh, imperfections, but as you end up doing chanting more and more, as you end up doing deity worship more and more, your sense of practicing that, right, there'll be more, you'll perfect more and more. You'll end up doing things which you may be doing in your own way, but as you gain experience, you do it the way Krishna likes, gradually. So then you will start enjoying. The people who are uh, doing this bhakti, gradually they become so much expert in doing that, Prabhu, that they will do it with less imperfections. So it's a work in progress, but this is not going to go waste, by the way. This process. So whenever you're doing all this 2-3 hours you mentioned, this will help you in focus. This will help you in your job. This will help you in your interaction with your family. So uh, and sometimes when we don't end up doing this and we indulge in things which is not favorable, we fall down. We end up doing things which is not desirable, and that leads to quarrel. So more and more we stay in the line. It's like a, so you see in the interstate, when you go to the right side of the road to the curb in interstate, there is this little uh, imperfections on the right, and when you get to the imperfections, your tire tends to make noise. Then you realize you're not sleepy, you're probably not focused. So it'll get you back into, then that will get you back into the lane, and you tend to so there is a need to modulate ourselves, because you cannot guarantee that you will always stay modulated. So which is why we have this process of constant discussion, constant dwelling on the same thing. So you see, the same sloka of Bhagavad Gita will be spoken by 20 different people, and all the 20 different speakers will have different rasas, because we are not the same. Srila Prabhupada's teachings are very uh, is overarching. So you can take it, and when we apply it, it should be favorable. But exactly how it get applies, maybe there is difference. That's the reason why the same Bhagavad Gita, the same Rama and same Mahabharata, every year we go through the process, Ram Navami, Rath Yatra, different Damodar month and all that. But every time there is a different unique rasa. So that's the reason why more and more we stay modulated, controlled. It's good for us. Okay, bro?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions? Any comments, any reflections?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add over here is anything we do right here in this material platform, like whether it is a mode of goodness or mode of passion or mode of ignorance, there could be slightest chances of some kind of contamination, even in mode of goodness also. Like longer time, we cannot stay in the mode of goodness because we are not conditional, we are not, sorry, we are not habituated with it. We are kind of conditional souls. Something here and there comes, like then it affects us. So more we more practice, as we discussed now, then the chances that we go beyond these modes. So when we go beyond these modes means we transcend to a higher platform. That higher platform, like we say, it's Sattva say, right? Out of the three gunas, right? Tamoguna, Rajaguna, Sattva. Then we attend to the Suddha Sattva. Suddha Sattva basically is the Brahma platform. So you can imagine, compare like that. There is a copper is there, right? So copper, if you see just like that in copper, electricity won't go. But when the copper is surcharged with the electricity, its action as a copper, it stops. It acts as electricity. So that if the iron is initially it is very cold, in the cold days iron is very cold, but you put the iron into hot inside the fire, it becomes warm, it becomes red hot. Though it is iron, it acts like a fire. You cannot hold it. It becomes totally just like a red hot. Similarly, if we practice, as we discussed now, as you practice more and more in a kind of a goodness, then like the copper, it turns into the electric wire, electricity, it flows through that. Similarly, we get into the Brahma platform. In this Brahma platform, when we are there, right? So connecting with the Supreme Person of Godhead, like the way we feel, like when we have a mode of ignorance, we don't realize certain things. We feel that here we're connecting. In mode of passion also we feel, and mode of goodness also we feel that something is happening. But when we are in Sudasattva or the Brahma platform, we get the real connection. Like the electricity flows in the copper wire. Similarly, when we're surcharged with unalloyed devotion, so it's very easy to have a connection with Supreme Person and Godhead. Just like a doctor and a compounder is there. Somebody can, like without studying anything or without any practicing, without any basic understanding, cannot go and assist a doctor. To assist a doctor for a surgery, we need to have some basic understanding. We need to have equal, similar kind of platform along with the doctor. Some kind of understanding so that you can connect with him. We can understand. The doctor is asking you, pass on this spatula, so you were forwarding that to him. So that kind of understanding, is there. So when we attend this, we do this devotional service, so things become very clear and it becomes obvious to us. So just wanted to add this.
Right.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So practice will sharpen our longing for the Supreme. More and more practice, we will start missing our service. Now we are doing service because of our liking. Once we sharpen it, we will miss the service. So there is a difference between liking and missing. And gradually there are so many techniques. But the fact is, once you start missing your service, that means you're not serving, you are in love. And once the love is there, that love is so precious, love to the Supreme, the Gopis' love is so precious that they were always missing Krishna. So it was part of that bloodstream. The contamination is totally gone. I mean, if you think about the people who end up doing practice bowling, first they will bowl with 3 wickets, but then they'll bowl with 1 wicket, and still they're going to hit that 1 wicket because the practice goes to their system so much that they miss not hitting the stump. So they will constantly hit the stump even with 1 wicket. So it's all about practice. That's why we're practitioners. We are sadhakas. Sadhakas means practitioners in devotional service. And more we practice, more and more we hear, more and more we serve, more and more. Then we realized we are becoming more and more humble. And Krishna hates ahankaris, and Krishna, like Duryodhana, and Krishna loves humility like Arjuna. So we will breed those techniques. Okay. Any other comments or reflection? Thank you for the discussion. Any other comments or thoughts? I know it's a long weekend, which is why we have less participation, but still I didn't expect so many. So thank you for joining.
Thank you,
So
Prabhuji.
yes, Prabhu, Rohit, go ahead.
No comments, Prabhuji, but thank you for the class. Thank you for taking time out on the long weekend.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your comments. And Gita Jayanti is coming. Gita, that's the reason why I wanted to hear your thoughts and hear your recitation. So that's why I wanted to take the opportunity to sort of speak, rather recite or Parayan, and we'll have full Bhagavad Gita Parayan, and that's where Prajapati Prabhu, Niranjan Prabhu, Pradeep Prabhu, and so a lot of you who, if for some reason you think the English transliteration is not happening, and you're more comfortable in your local language. We have local language Bhagavad Gita. If we have Tamil Bhagavad Gita, we have Kannada Bhagavad Gita. So sometimes I must admit that 5 to 10% of the verses I'm more comfortable, and actually especially more in Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm more comfortable reading a Odia Srimad Bhagavatam. So I have a Odia Srimad Bhagavatam, because if I can't read the transliteration in English, I resort to that. So more and more, the reason why I'm saying that is Bhagavad Gita Jayanti is a week away, and we'll recite everything. It brings purity, and at this month of Gita Jayanti, more and more you utter, recite, there'll be a lot of purity. Okay, Prabhu, thank you for joining, and any other comments before we end? Prajapati Prabhu, you are dialing in from India and you have a lot of enthusiasm. So thank you for joining, and thank you everyone. You want to say
Thank you,
something, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhuji. No, thank you, Prabhuji. Thanks.
Okay, so let's end here. Thank you, Anuradha Mataji, Priyanka Mataji, Pradeep Prabhu, Niranjan Prabhu, Rohit Prabhu, and Prajapati Prabhu. Let's all pay obeisances to the lotus feet of wonderful Vaishnavas by chanting Vancha Kalpataruvasya Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitana Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namo
Namo Namah.
Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai Bhagavad Gita Grantaraj Bhagavad Gita ki Jai Shila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare